So hey everybody, the time is here. I'm going to give you my personal ranking for all 22 Marvel films up to this point for the Marvel Cinematic Universe. This is May 2008 through April 2019, so that's Iron Man 1 all the way through Avengers Endgame. All 22 MCU films that came out within that time period. So that means Spider-Man Far From Home. If you saw that film by the time you see this video, that movie was not released yet by the time I filmed this video. So that film is kind of out of the question right now, but it is the first 22 Marvel Cinematic Universe films I am ranking for you today. This is just my personal preference. I'm sure a lot of you are going to disagree with some of the rankings for some of these films. Some of you, I'm sure, are going to want certain films that are higher on the list or lower on the list. But this is just my personal preference of what I feel are some of the better and weaker MCU films. So let's get to it because I do have a lot of films to talk about in this video. For my personal rankings, and at the very bottom of the list, we have at number 22, The Incredible Hulk with Edward Norton. I really did not like this film. This is probably the one out of two MCU films I can honestly say I really didn't care for very much. I like Edward Norton as an actor. I just don't think he's that great of a Hulk or a Bruce Banner. I just thought the story was kind of bad. Abomination I thought was just kind of a bland villain, even though I do like Tim Roth as an actor also. Just a lot of good talent was recruited for the movie, but the end result of Incredible Hulk I just thought was really bad, and I'm kind of glad they recast Mark Ruffalo to play Bruce Banner, because I thought he was a much better Hulk than Edward Norton was in this movie. At number 21, we have Ant-Man 1, another MCU film I can honestly say I really didn't care for very much, even though I do admire both Ant-Man films more after Avengers Endgame and how that played out and how Scott Lang had a role in those two films and things like that. I just thought Ant-Man 1 had some bland humor. It really had a bad villain. I thought Corey Stoll's villain was really not very engaging or very good in that movie. And at the end of the day, it was just kind of a generic heist film. There really wasn't anything about it that it did different than other heist films did. It just was very bland. I'm not a big Adam McKay fan. I know he was involved with the script of that movie, so not a big Ant-Man 1 fan. It's at number 21 on my list. At number 20, we have the film I'm sure everybody wishes was at the bottom of my list, but it's not. I thought those two films I just mentioned were worse than this one, and that's Thor 2, The Dark World. Really bad villain in this movie, really uninteresting story. Yes, some of the things with Thor and Jane Foster were a little interesting, I guess. Yeah, there was the whole thing with his mom and his dad, and Thor trying to be the king of Asgard and things like that, but really just wasn't enough to warrant a sequel at that point in time. I thought more could have been done with a Thor sequel. Thor 1 was just a million years better, and obviously when we got Thor Ragnarok, that was a million years better, or million times better as also. So Thor 2, The Dark World, it's at number 20 on my list. At number 19, we have Captain Marvel. I like the movie. Definitely Captain Marvel, the character, was pretty interesting in Avengers Endgame whenever they used her in that movie. But for the most part, she was just another character to the roster. And after seeing that film, that's really all she was, just another character added to the roster. Really nothing specific or unique to that film to me. It really didn't stand out very much. I like the film. You know, it's cool to have another great hero to the character roster for Marvel, I guess. But for the most part, that's really all Captain Marvel really did for me, and really didn't do much for me beyond that point. At number 18, we have Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. I like the film, but I had a lot of problems with it. I thought the goods and bads explored with Star-Lord's dad in that film were, when they explore the good parts about him, I kind of like the film, but when they explore kind of the not so good, dark areas of that character, that's when the film kind of got not so interesting to me. It kind of went a generic bad guy taking over the universe kind of film at that point. I also didn't like how the film felt more like a comedy than an action film. Guardians of the Galaxy 1 had a good blend of action and comedy. Guardians 2 just was a comedy. It really didn't have enough action to warrant a Marvel licensed property movie attached to it. I thought there just needed to be a little bit more action in there and more interesting things done with Star-Lord's dad than just the good guy that is bad, that has some good things about him, but is pretty much bad for the most part. So, I don't know. It just didn't do it much for me. So that makes it in at number 18 for me. At number 17, we have Captain America 1, the First Avenger. This is Captain America's first adventure on screen. Sorry about that for the MCU. And that's really about it. It was his origin story. Yeah, it was nice. But we've had better times with Captain America in later MCU films. So as a result, Captain America 1 is number 17 on my list. At number 16, we have Iron Man 3. I like the film. I like Shane Black as a writer and director, but it was just too different for a Marvel film. It just really was. It basically was a Shane Black film with Iron Man thrown in the mix, really. There just wasn't enough Marvel things about it. There really wasn't enough Marvel Universe things in it. Really, at the end of the day, there's just not a lot of things in it that stayed with the MCU and kind of became important later on. It was just kind of little things every once in a while. It's like, oh, I guess that kind of showed up, and that kind of showed up in that other film too. But that's really about it. I believe it was just a Shane Black film that happened to have Iron Man thrown in the mix. So that's at number 16 on my list. At number 15, we have Ant-Man and the Wasp. I like it significantly better than Ant-Man 1. It had a much better villain this time around, much better villains, I should say. It had more than one villain in that movie. Just a better film. I thought the idea of a romantic comedy for Ant-Man and Wasp was more appropriate and more fun than a heist film with just Ant-Man in it. There's just more to like in this film. It was more fun to watch, and just a significant improvement over Ant-Man 1. So as a result, it's at number 15 on my list. Now this next film is going to really get a lot of people mad because a lot of people probably have this at the very bottom of their list. But I like this film better than most people do. And that's Iron Man 2 at number 14 on my list. I thought Iron Man 2 was very underrated. I liked it better than most people did at the time it came out. It delivered a lot of the goods that the first film had, though not quite as good as that first film, obviously. Obviously the things with the villains was not as good this time around. But it was, for the most part, underrated. I thought there was things about it that people just ignore about it and really don't like about it, and just they kind of throw it to the side as a result. And because Avengers 1 has been out for so many years now, it just kind of feels pointless to kind of reference this film that's been out for so long, I guess. But I don't know. I like Iron Man 2 better than most people do. There's more enjoyment I find in it than most people find in it. So it's at number 14 on my list. At number 13, we have Avengers 2, Age of Ultron. This film explores more character than Avengers 1 did, so that's one thing that Joss Whedon brought to that film that Avengers 1 didn't have as much of. But it just wasn't as epic as Avengers 1. It just didn't feel as big or as epic or as life-changing as Avengers 1 did. It just wasn't quite the same event as Avengers 1 was. And this film actually premiered at a theater that was new in my area at the time. So at the time, that was pretty big, big new film, big new theater and stuff like that. And even then, I was just like, fun little Avengers movie that wasn't as big as the first one, not as good as the first one. Explores more character. That was one element I liked about it, but that's really about it. So that makes it in at number 13 on my list. At number 12, we have Captain America Civil War. This is the film I'm sure people are hoping that was much higher ranked on my list than most. I like this film. I feel it's a little overrated, though. I do like how the film explores the right and wrongs of heroes. There's Team Tony Stark, Team Captain America in that movie. Both characters have valid points. Both teams have valid points in that movie. I do like the idea of Avengers film where the Avengers are split up and they kind of are against each other. And like I said, it is interesting that they explore the rights and wrongs of heroes. But at the end of the day, it was just kind of kids fighting with each other, and neither team really wins anything. And I guess another thing I didn't like about it is I'm not a big fan of throw every character at the screen that you can and hope that it sticks. I'm not a big fan of that. I really do prefer stories that are about stories first. Yes, characters are important. Yes, have good developed characters, but don't just throw every character at the screen that you can and hope that it sticks and hope that I'll like it, because that's not how it works. That's not how filmmaking works. So as a result, Captain America Civil War is number 12 on my list. It needed to do more with characters rather than just throw them at the screen the best they could. At number 11, we have Thor 1, a film that I know a lot of people think I should probably have much lower on the list, but I like a lot better personally. I just thought Kenneth Branagh brought a lot to the film. He had a great directorial effort. He brought a lot of emphasis and fun to the movie. He really introduced Thor in an interesting way. It wasn't just about a mythology of Thor. He really brought Thor to the real world in a much interesting way than people give the film credit for. It's at number 11 on my list. At number 10, we have Thor 3 Ragnarok. Taika Waititi's humorous approach was a lot of fun in this film. Probably my favorite Thor film as far as fun Thor films can be. I know a lot of people personally thought that this is the best Thor film, and I don't disagree with it. It's personally, after seeing my list assembled here, probably my favorite Thor film as well. So it makes it in at number 10 on my list. At number 9, we have Black Panther. It had a great villain, great directing from Ryan Coogler. Like I said, Michael B. Jordan did play a very good villain in this movie. Really, really good villain. And it had tons of culture in the film. I just love that about Black Panther. It makes it at number 9 on my list. At number 8, we have Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1. It's a great fun time in the theater. It was very unique at the time it came out. It took the world by storm. Tons of merchandise came out because of this film. People really got into Guardians of the Galaxy because of this film. It definitely put James Gunn on the map, made him a huge director. A ton of fun. I really liked Guardians of the Galaxy 1. It makes it at number 8 on my list. At number 7, we have Doctor Strange, a film that I personally thought was underrated. A Marvel film that I thought was much more original than people gave it credit for. It has tons of interesting philosophy. It has tons of things about healing and finding the middle way and going about your life rather than just healing something. You can heal it mentally. You can mentally improve yourself and things like that. There was a lot of things about Doctor Strange that I really liked. It had tons of interesting philosophy, tons of great images, great visual ride. I love Doctor Strange. It's underrated. I love it much more than most people do. It makes it at number 7 on my list. At number 6, we have Avengers Infinity War. This film was amazing. It was epic. It had tons of characters. Rather than Captain America Civil War, I thought this film balanced characters better than that film did. They really made about Thanos first and then everybody else second. It really was about everybody against Thanos and the Avengers working as a team, and when the Avengers were together or individually placed in certain scenes a certain way. It just had amazing, interesting ways to kind of tell the stories of those characters in interesting ways, more so than Civil War did. So it makes it at number 6 on my list. At number 5, we have Avengers Endgame. I thought this was an epic saga conclusion. It wrapped everything up perfectly. Though I have 4 other Marvel films I liked better, I thought this film ended the Infinity Saga in a very interesting way that I was very happy with. It's at number 5 on my list. At number 4, we have a film that I also thought was underrated for MCU, and that's Spider-Man Homecoming. This is a great replay value film. It's a fun high school film. It has a great villain with Michael Keaton. I just had a ton of fun watching this film, and I continue to have tons of fun watching this film. Ever since it came out, I'm going back to it so much and so much and so much, and I just really like it a lot. It's a fun Spider-Man film. It's a fun Marvel film. It's at number 4 on my list. At number 3, we have Avengers 1. This film was a great production. It had a great storyline. Josh Whedon did a terrific job with the directing of this film. It really was epic. It really was life-changing at the time. It was so huge. I just remember talking about this film for months and for years and for so long. And even Avengers Endgame goes back to this film. It has a great production, a great storyline. There's just so many things I love about Avengers 1. It's at number 3 on my list. At number 2, we have Captain America the Winter Soldier. What I love about this film so much and why it's number 2 on my list is it's more political thriller than a superhero film. And I think that's what's so unique about it is it really is a superhero film that doesn't feel like that in all the right ways. It really is very different, very good. I like how certain characters just feel human in this film. The film's not concerned of who's a superhero and who's not. Nick Fury gets tons of cool things to do in this film. Colby Smulders as Agent Hill gets tons of cool things to do in this film. There's just so many interesting things about it. I loved all the stuff with Black Widow and Captain America kind of talking back and forth and trying to improve each other's lives, and it's just a great film. It's my second favorite MCU film of all time. It's at number 2 on my list. And at number 1, and personally one of my favorite films of all time, is Iron Man 1. This is my favorite MCU film. This film had everything right, from the editing to the directing to the acting to the writing to how action scenes should be choreographed. Jon Favreau made a great film. He truly made the best Marvel film to date, and probably one of the best superhero films to date. I love Jeff Bridges as Obadiah Stane in that film. It's just so great. I can't praise Iron Man 1 enough. It's just a perfect film. It really is my favorite superhero film and my favorite MCU film as well. So those are my 22 favorite, or least favorite in certain cases, MCU films, you guys. Let me know down below what some of your favorites were. I'm sure a lot of you are going to agree and disagree with some of my choices of where they ranked in this film, but those are my personal choices, and I hope to see you guys here for a later video.